when they tell you why they want to have access to medical cannabis, and say no to them. We have the ability here to truly make a difference in their lives in a very safe way. This bill and your vote on this bill should not be driven by fear of a mail piece, should not be driven by fear of an email campaign against you. If there's an issue that should not be a partisan issue, if there's an issue that should not be a regional issue, it's the issue of improving the quality of life of people that are suffering. We talk about, again, the previous speaker talked about the various chemicals in marijuana. Another speaker talked about marijuana being a gateway drug. Ladies and gentlemen, we've all seen a far greater toll being taken on individuals and their lives and their families' lives by alcohol than by cannabis. We've seen more people get in trouble and have health issues from tobacco than from cannabis. One of the speakers talked about the possibility of somebody smoking long-term, maybe developing lung cancer as a result of using medical cannabis. Talk to somebody who has months left to live. Talk to somebody that doesn't know what it's like to wake up or go to bed without being in pain. Developing cancer 20 years down the road, potentially, is the furthest thing from their mind. Being able to get out of bed the next day is what's on their mind. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not about legalization of pot. This is not about opening up the door to gateway drugs for young kids or casual users. It's about our ability as legislators to improve the quality of life of people in Illinois. I ask you very sincerely just to look deep within yourself and do what you believe is right on this. I think if you do, you will vote aye. Mr. Speaker, should this bill get the requisite number of votes, I request a verification. Thank you.
Representative Lang, you're seeking recognition, I believe, to answer a question from a previous commenter.
Thank you. A previous legislator thought he read in the bill that said that if an application was in for 20 days and not approved or denied, it became approved automatically. The gentleman misread the bill. The bill says that if the department has not adopted rules within 140 days of the time they're supposed to, and applications are coming in, the applications are deemed approved after 20 days. The fact is that if we pass this now, the bill does not become effective until July. The department will have many months to create rules, so this provision will not come into effect.
Further, Representative Tracy.
Speaker, will the sponsor yield?
Indicates.
I had a call from a constituent who is an employer, and he employs varieties of workmen and work ladies in his workplace, among them accountants, forklift drivers, and he had read the bill. I have read the bill, and it looks to me that there are about 3 different areas that refer to employers and how this bill affects them. And this constituent posed questions to me about the bill, and I didn't exactly have the answers, and so I posed them to you because this employer is worried about his rising workman's compensation rates. He's also worried about his rising liability insurance rates, and he posed the same questions to his liability insurer. How will this bill affect me? Because as I see it, it says that no employer may prohibit the use of the medical marijuana, not necessarily at the workplace, but by one of the work people. And he says, so if I have a forklift driver, and let me preface this saying that they do random drug testing at this workplace, and if a forklift operator has Crohn's disease or one of these debilitating illnesses, how am I to treat him? Am I to allow him to operate a forklift?
Is that a
and
question?
Because for his liability insurer is saying, no, you cannot. So does he have to then find different work for this employee other than his regular work as a forklift operator? Because how do we define impairment? When they randomly drug test, they may find these metabolites in the blood, but it says that just so that they aren't in concentrations to reduce impairment. So my question is what am I to respond to an employer who is worried about how this affects him in the workplace and employing people who now could be under the medical marijuana influence?
Representative, today, under the law, an employer can refuse to allow a person to use that forklift if they think they're under alcoholic impairment or medical impairment or medication impairment. The same patient who we're talking about in this bill who might use marijuana for medical purposes if this bill were to pass can today come to work having taken 12 codeine, 10 Vicodin, 8 Oxycontin. Nothing changes. The employer still has the opportunity, the power, and the right to refuse to allow an employee to work under an impaired state. Nothing changes. It's the same law.
But let's look at the three different places that we talk about in this bill, the employer's rights and obligations in regards to this. No employer may refuse to employ or otherwise penalize a person solely because of his status as a registered qualifying patient. And I'm on page 21 of the bill. Nothing in this act shall be construed to require an employer to accommodate the ingestion, etc., in any workplace of any employee while working under the influence of cannabis, provided that a qualifying patient shall not be construed to be under the influence of cannabis solely because of the presence of metabolites or components of cannabis that appear in insufficient concentration to cause impairment. How do we define that? What is that?
It's no different than the current law, Representative, regarding alcohol at the workplace or other drugs or medicines people ingest and go to work. The bill says that an employee may not be disciplined. The bill says an employee may be disciplined for coming to work in an impaired state. Whether it's alcohol or marijuana or Oxycontin or Vicodin or any other impairment, the law hasn't changed.
But we have a breathalyzer to monitor the alcohol.
Do employers have breathalyzers on their locations?
Certainly they do. They have random drug testing all the time.
And they make
the lady an additional minute to bring our remarks to a close.
Yes, I believe forklift operators and the like, they do. But we have a
There's nothing in this bill that prohibits an employer from continuing random drug tests.
But how does he determine that there is or is not impairment?
The same way they determine now. I don't know why we're not communicating, Representative. If a person comes to work and the employer thinks they're drunk, they can hand the breathalyzer to them and say, breathe into this. If someone comes to work and the employer knows that the person has a medical cannabis license and they believe that that person is under impairment, they'll say, here's a bottle. Go to the men's room and do what you need to do in there, and we'll do a little test right now. Nothing changes in the law.
But there again, they will test positive, and then we have to determine. I mean, it is a risk for the employer with a liability situation, because what?
From DuPage, Representative Ramey.
Sponsor yield.
He indicated
going to staff to answer a few of your questions. Is this your first medical marijuana bill?
It is my first medical marijuana bill. By the way, I love when you wear the red jacket.
I was asking if you would like to wear it now.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Very good. There was a few questions already answered for me, but there are a couple that I have on my own. You talk in a bill where a person